Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the Point Podcast. Hope everybody's doing well on this. Um, you know, I was gonna say Canada Day, but I will say Canada Day, but it's also important to remember, what today is. It's a different Canada Day than the first 100 and 52 or whatever 53rd that we're at right now. This is obviously an important time in our country where, as Canadians, we need to reflect and appreciate and just accept what had happened at residential schools when it comes to indigenous people in this country. And we need to just come in solidarity. This is the same as the Black Lives Matter movement or things we've seen during the pandemic that I think have sparked good social change. Today's a day, maybe not, it's not your average Canada Day where you're having fireworks and you're, doing whatever festivities you like, whether you like to drink or have a barbecue. Maybe do that today, but also in the back of your mind, think about what transpired at residential schools. It's not a, well, did this happen? We know it happened. And, to take a day just to, take away from Canada and have this day for Indigenous people and for, the rest of us to kind of look at it and appreciate and understand what they're going through. I think it's a good thing. It's a small sacrifice for better social change. Again, in the Black Lives Matter movement, seeing people understand and accept, African Americans, African Canadians, just minorities, that they were being treated unfairly in the United States, that they were being killed for no good reason. Well, we know about all the deaths that they've uncovered so far, and they're heinous crimes. And today, it's just a day to appreciate and understand and be apathetic to what Indigenous people are going through. And I think as a country, this can be a good day of unity where, however you want to, I'm not going to say celebrate the day because it's terrible what has transpired, but you always want to be looking in the positive light. And, if you want to do something as a family to kind of sit there and reflect, read some stories, or, have a better understanding of what transpired in this country, I think that's a good thing. Getting knowledge, I don't know everything about the situation. Only reading social media headlines is not a good way to get knowledge in anything in life. And that could be a sport, that could be, Black Lives Matter, or, what transpired at residential schools. Having a better understanding of as much as you can in life is always a good thing. So I'm not here to, get on my soapbox, but I will say Happy Canada Day to all my listeners. This is my first Canada Day doing the podcast. I started November 1st. We're here in July. It's episode 144. It's pretty incredible for me that I'm still doing this, number one, but people have seemed to jump on. Like I did the live with Casey last night and over 1,200 people viewed it. I really appreciate that. Hearing feedback from people, I always love to hear, and just people that, put up with my irritating voice, listening to this for however many hours I've been podcasting. Just know I really appreciate it. It's coming from for me, it's very sincere that I really appreciate what you guys are doing, listening to me, hopefully getting some entertainment out of it. I try to be my genuine self. That's all I know how to be, for better or for worse. Noah Warren is Noah Warren. And, I'm going to continue to try to get some great guests on the podcast. I'm hoping to line up an interview later in July with a current pro hockey player. I send out messages to people constantly. Don't always get a response, but I'm hoping to hear back from some really interesting people down the line, and hopefully have another great interview like I did with Doug McLean a few months ago, where it was great for me, and also great to hear from people that really enjoyed hearing it. So obviously it's a special day. I'll be honest, Canada is my favorite holiday, normally because we're celebrating our country. Obviously today's not the greatest day for that because we've seen some terrible things that have transpired in this country. And also maybe because of COVID, I would loop that in. and some of our government decisions, which I'll get into today regarding the Montreal Canadiens. But we do live in Canada. It's a pretty great country. Our prime minister is not that great, if you ask me, but nevertheless, I'm not going to get political on this podcast too much. But Canada has always been a special day for me. I usually celebrate it with friends in Fredericton. This year, a little bit different, but I think there's still some really good things that you can do today. I mentioned just reflecting on the residential school crisis, but also, I got to loop everything back to sports because that's what I do here. That's what we do here on To The Point. So I'll give you some suggestions on what you can watch today. If you're looking, if it's raining out, you don't have anything to do, if you just want to sit back with a cold one and have some entertainment, I'll point out some things you can watch throughout the podcast today. But the meat and potatoes of today's podcast will definitely be the Stanley Cup Final Game 2 last night, where what a difference from Game 1. I mentioned Tuesday on the podcast that a series is like a storybook. The first page can be something very interesting. It can be slanted one way. But as you go through the book, your main character, your protagonists have very, edgy, potentially different outcomes. And the Game 1, it was written a Tampa Bay, just a dominant fashion. They were, they were King Kong, so to speak. They were puffing their chest out. They were dominant in their position. Now, if you flip the page onto Game 2, you have the same result with Tampa Bay winning the game, but it's a very different story. And that's the interesting thing about sports. No game's the same. You play the same game every night. You think it would get boring, but it doesn't, because every game has something different about it. And last night, it certainly was not Tampa Bay, the dominant team. Last night, the Tampa Bay Lightning were outplayed by the Montreal Canadiens. But for a number of different reasons, the Montreal Canadiens, although played better, came out with much better effort than Game 1, still found the same result. And sometimes that's sports, where you just don't get the breaks. A goaltender at the other end that's just playing fantastic. And sometimes it's just tough luck. And last night, I think there's a number of things that we're going to get into here. But I got to start off the podcast. Obviously, Tampa Bay getting the 3-1 win, which it's got to be painful to Montreal Canadiens. They're now down 0-2 in the series, heading back to Montreal Friday night. But you should have had Game 2. You should be going home with the split. And that's a much different mentality as you head back home. Can the Montreal Canadiens win both games at the Bell Center? Yes. I don't have a whole lot of confidence saying that they will, but can they? Sure. But going down 0-2 to the defending Stanley Cup champions is a tough pill to swallow. And it automatically puts all the pressure on you in Game 3. Tampa, in my opinion, comes into Game 3 playing with house money. They say, well, we still have Game 4. We can have a split. We can win this series. We can win the Stanley Cup at home on Wednesday, Game 5. Montreal now knows we're not coming back 0-3. It's slim odds that we're coming back 0-2. But if we're going to start this train, if we're going to come all the way back, it needs to start Friday night. But last night, I look at it, and the title of this podcast, if you look at Apple Podcasts when I upload this, is going to be called The Heir Apparent. Because Andrei Vasilevskiy, I've said this before the series, I think he's the best goaltender in the world. Now, Carey Price has played great in these playoffs. But a narrative, as you know, context and narratives are two of my favorite words. Carey Price has been really good in these playoffs, but he has not been fantastic, if you ask me. The Montreal Canadiens have played great team defense. I think of games 4 against Toronto, Price had to play fantastic, even though they lost. Game 6 in the third period in overtime, he was spectacular. Game 3 against Vegas, he was out of his mind. Other than that, I can't think of a game where Carey Price had to be superhuman for the Montreal Canadiens to win. That's 3 out of 4 rounds. That's not doing more than your part. You need that from goaltending. In game 5 against Carolina Hurricanes, Andre Vasilevsky had a shutout and he stopped over 30 pucks. That's pretty damn good in an elimination closeout game. He has a shutout in every closeout game so far these playoffs, including the Stanley Cup final last year when they defeated Dallas. But to me, Vasilevsky is the best goalie in the NHL, and he continues to prove it because through 2 games, he's been better than Carey Price. If you just look at the team, Game 1, Tampa outplayed Montreal by a wide margin. He led in 1 goal. That makes a lot of sense. Game 2, the Montreal Canadiens outplayed Tampa for, I'd say, a good 45 to 50 minutes of the game. I thought in the third period, Tampa came on. But Carey Price was not spectacular last night. The Coleman goal, the Cirelli goal were both stoppable pucks. Now, was the Coleman goal tough when I'll go through that play? Yeah, but the Cirelli goal cannot go in. Now, you can say the Suzuki goal shouldn't have went in, but that was only the second goal Vasilevsky's allowed in this series. He's allowed 2 goals in 2 games. Price has allowed 8. In a game where Montreal dominated, where Tampa had 15 shots after 2 periods, you can't be down the way Montreal was playing. And it was a turnover, but sometimes you just need to make a big save. So going through this game, Montreal found success through a variety of ways, but I look at it and say, how did they have the most of their success? Eliminating time and space. There was no ice last night. Montreal had the ice when they wanted it because their defense stepped up. They were physical, but every time Tampa got the puck, they didn't let them have it for long. The only line for the Tampa Bay Lightning that had sustained pressure was the Yanni Gourde, Blake Coleman, and Barclay Goodrow line, the third line. They've been fantastic in this series. And there could be a direct correlation why this line is having so much success. And we're going to go through the game, but I'm going to point this out now. They're going up against the Suzuki, Caulfield, and Toffoli line. They had success in game 1. Blake Coleman scored a goal. He scored another one last night. You're looking at that line for Montreal. They have 0 goals through the first 2 games because Suzuki scored on the power play. So 5-on-5, that line has 0 goals. The third line of Tampa, which has been the matchup for Luke Richardson, basically going head-to-head, is tough. It's 0 for 2. Blake Coleman with 2 goals, 2 big goals, 2 game-winning goals to put another emphasis on it. So he scored the second goal in game 1, second goal last night. But so Montreal's eliminating time and space. They're being physical. We saw early in the first period, it's kind of run and gun where Suzuki had a 2-on-1. He was stopped by Vasilevsky down the other end. The point line has a 3-on-2. Kucherov gets a good shot, but Price was stalled early, and Kucherov was playing well. I also thought Montreal got a lot of confidence by killing off 2 Tampa power plays early in the game. Tampa still has a dynamic power play. The way they move the puck is spectacular. Kucherov's got it on the half wall, and he just finds point in the middle of the ice, or he can fire across the ice to Stamkos. But Montreal was getting bodies in the lane. Kotkaniemi had a big block. Shea Weber, Jeff Petrie. They were getting in the lanes, making passes tough, and both power plays didn't really have an elite chance. And we saw after that, it sparked a lot of great momentum. The fourth line of Montreal started playing really well. Armia was checked back into the lineup. Him, Perry, and Stahl were outplaying Maroon Matthew Joseph, who replaced Alex Killorn last night, and Ross Colton. They were getting good opportunities. They were cycling the puck. And Vasilevsky had to make some big saves. I mentioned robbing Suzuki. He stopped Toffoli point blank with a big shoulder save. Great shot. But Montreal was just the better of the team. They're getting good scoring opportunities. And they got an opportunity with a power play late in the first period where they had a 4-on-3 power play for a minute, basically the full 2 minutes, and they couldn't score. They got some good looks, but Tampa killed it off. Then they had a 2-minute power play 5-on-4, and they couldn't score there. And both power plays were skunked last night. But for Montreal, your penalty killers do the job. You need to score on that power play because you don't have the offensive firepower that the Tampa Bay Lightning does. There's no Nikita Kucherov or Braden Point on the Tampa Bay Lightning. Braden Point didn't score a goal last night, but I thought he played great. His defensive prowess, some of his steals, his back checking. But when you have a power play like that, a 4-on-3 for 2 minutes and a 5-on-4 for 2 minutes, you need to find a way to put the puck in the back of the net. And they didn't. And that's another reason why you lose this game. You played a hell of a lot better, but when you get an opportunity against a better team, yes, you were better than that better team last night, but you need to stomp on their throats and you need to get a lead. What happens? They don't score in those power plays. We get to the second period where the newly formed second line with Killorn being out of it, they just jump Tyler Johnson to that second line. He's on the ice with Stamkos, and Cirelli, and Montreal's on a long shift. They're tired. Johnson throws the puck back. Cirelli was actually at the point because Hedman had jumped up, but Cirelli throws the puck just to the net. Wasn't really a smart shot because it looks like it would be a normal save, but there's sticks in the lane, and it just goes under Price's arm through his legs, and it makes it 1-0 Tampa. This was not a tip shot. This was not really a screen. This was just a really bad goal for Carey Price, where your team's playing better. At the time, I said, oh, this is crushing for Montreal because you're playing so much better. Carey Price is usually the guy that's never going to land in a stinker. But this was a stinker. This was a bad goal. There was no stick that got in the lane. There was nothing, like no screen. You can make excuses for goalies sometimes. This is not one of those cases. This was just a goal where Carey Price wants that one back. Makes it 1-0. I mentioned Montreal gets a power play. Sergachev takes a bad penalty where it was a dangerous play where Lehkonen was skating chasing the puck to the Tampa Bay zone. Sergachev kind of hits him on the side of his hip. He goes crashing into the end boards. He gets called for, I believe, interference, may have been cross-checking, but Lehkonen ended up leaving the game. This was just a cheap play by Sergachev. I heard online, no suspension. I don't think he'll be suspended, but this play is dangerous. This is how guys really get hurt. This was a slew foot-esque play where a guy's moving at a very high clip and you take his legs out from under him. It's a dangerous play. It shouldn't happen. And I can't see Sergachev being suspended in the Stanley Cup final for that play, but it's something that I think the league needs to look into. Set a precedent for this play because it's dangerous. We see it occasionally. Like, don't suspend a guy for a guy's against the board. A guy's got the puck and he's facing you, but then you see him coming to hit you and you turn your body where you're facing the glass. That's not checking from behind. That's the player turtling and facing the other side of the boards trying to draw a penalty. That shouldn't be a penalty because he turned at the last second. This play was premeditated. Sergachev was pissed off. He was feisty last night. He got into it at the end of the game. He got into it with Gallagher in game one where, Gallagher got a nasty cut at the top of his head. But these plays should be outlawed because they're dangerous. Cam Barker basically lost his career chasing one of these pucks. He got his legs taken out from under him. His legs went crashing and he broke his leg. He was never the same player. Guys lose their careers in plays like this. Lehkonen left the game. Hopefully he can play in game two because he's part of that checking line with Deneau and Gallagher. But again, it's a big loss for Montreal. But on that ensuing power play, this is another weird goal. Suzuki gets a rolling puck. He throws it to the net. Again, it sneaks under the leg of Vasilevsky. Not a hard shot, just like a floater. And this is a bad goal. So it's kind of, I'm thinking, okay, well, it's a mulligan. Price let in a really soft goal from Cirelli. Well, Suzuki gets another bad goal back from Vasilevsky. Now we have a game. And For the rest of the period, Montreal was all over them. For a period of time, they love to put that metric at the top of the screen. The Yanni Gourde was on the ice for over 2 minutes. They were pinned in their own zone. They kept cycling the puck, getting different lines on the ice. But Vasilevsky was just rock solid. Petrie got shots from the point. We saw Suzuki get a high quality opportunity, high quality chance. But Vasilevsky, when he got the chance, he covered the puck, but he made the save and he limited rebounds. This is just Vasilevsky. He's that damn good. So Montreal dominates the period. You think, okay, well, they're going in the third. They got all the momentum. Now, this is not like game 2 or game 1 where they scored late in the second. But you're like, I never thought Montreal was going to win the game because they had no agency. They had all the agency in this game. They just couldn't beat the better goaltender. But with about 10 seconds left in the period, Montreal's thinking, okay, well, maybe we can get one last chance. So Shea Weber breaks the puck out to Philip Danault. But Danault's checked along the half boards. This is about at center ice. And Barclay Goodrow takes the puck. It's a turnover. He's got the puck. Sherratt steps up for some reason. I do not know why, but he gets caught at his own red line. So Goodrow pass to Coleman. Coleman goes back to Goodrow. Goodrow cross the ice again as the sliding defenseman puts a stick down on the tape of Blake Coleman. He puts it under the arm of Price, and he scores with 0.3 seconds remaining in the second period. This was so close, they didn't even have another face-off for the period. And I'm talking 0.3 seconds. Normally, this is just a play where, Montreal just tries to do something. You give it to Danault, maybe you get one last shot on Vasilevsky. So I don't really fault them for it. But what I do is I credit Tampa. Sometimes you see them, they let them go get the shot. Tampa was ready. They got the hit on Danault. He turned the puck over. You go back, and Sherratt, he's had a tough series defensively so far. Where in game 1, I thought he had his woes, but there you can't step up at your own blue line. You need to be back. You need to be playing defense, and this 2-on-1 was essentially possible because of Sherratt's misstep. And this is another goal for Carey Price where I say, if Carey Price is dialed in, if he's Andrei Vasilevsky the way he was last night, he makes the save. But it sneaks under his arm. It makes it 2-1 Tampa. I mentioned before it's Coleman's second of the series, and it's 2-1 Tampa. And we go into the third period where, following the second period, just for reference, Vasilevsky had 28 saves after the first 2 periods. They were just dominating the Tampa Bay Lightning. But Tampa had the lead, which is just got to be frustrating for the Montreal Canadiens. We go in the third. Tampa starts to play better. We see that point Kucherov line getting some opportunities. They're getting some shots on goal finally, but Montreal is still in it, still very much in the game. And it was 3 minutes to go, just past the 4-minute mark. Joel Edmondson's got the puck behind his net, and he's skating to the right, and he hears his partner Petrie call for the puck. So what he does is he throws a backhand reverse off the inboards. Now, this is usually a routine play because they know exactly where the D partner is going to be and it's going to work. But Edmondson has kind of a soft dump. It hits the boards. It doesn't get to Petrie. It pops right on the stick of Andre Palat. He's on the side of the net, but Price is not ready. So he fires the puck off Price's skate and it goes in the back of the net to make it 3-1. Another terrible turnover by Edmondson. Palat capitalizes on it, makes it 3-1 Tampa. And that was all she wrote. They pulled the goalie, but they couldn't get through to Vasilevsky. Tampa didn't give up many good opportunities. And Tampa takes a 2-0 series lead in a game where the Montreal Canadiens deserved the victory. But Tampa just found a way to win. They get 3 goals from 3 different lines. Again, that's impressive. Cirelli scores. He's on the second line. You have Blake Coleman on the third line, and you have Palat from the top line for the Tampa Bay Lightning get on the score sheet. But another reason for Montreal, you got to be concerned. Kucherov and Point didn't get a point last night, no pun intended. But yet, you didn't win the game. You outshot the Tampa Bay Lightning last night, yet you didn't win the game. Those are 2 huge statistics where you dominated parts of the game, but you didn't win. And that's where I look at this and say, where's this going to go? What happens for the Montreal Canadiens in this spot? Because they need they needed something positive to happen from this game, but they really didn't get it. Like they outshot the Tampa Bay Lightning last night 43-23, 20 more shots. But I can point to a few things with that. I thought they had some really good opportunities. You know, Nick Suzuki, I believe, had 10 shots last night. He had 4 in the slot. That's not bad. When it comes to your shot total, you want to get into the middle of the ice. So that's not bad. But Vasilevsky was just really good. But for Montreal, use your points more. You have guys with great shots from the back end. We saw they scored in game 1. Sherratt threw the puck from the back end. It hit a stick, hit McDonough's shin pad in the back of the net. That can happen on any given play. You got Shea Weber back there. Yeah, he's not the greatest at hitting the net right now, but he's got one of the hardest shots in the history of the game. Allow him to shoot the puck. You have Jeff Petrie. His shot is no slouch. It may have broken Alex Killorn's foot in game 1. But use your back end. Another thing, this is just picking cherries, but Erik Gustafsson should not be in the lineup. Like, he's a power play specialist, but you don't trust him to play 5-on-5, and it puts a really heavy burden on Shea Weber, Ben Sherratt, Edmondson, and Petrie. I'd rather have Merrill and Romanoff, or at least you can say, okay, Romanoff's a kid, but I'd have more faith in him playing 5-on-5. Gustafsson's only there to be on the power play. And when you don't play and then you just hop on the ice for the power play, you're not going to be warm. You're not going to be sharp. And he doesn't add anything. He doesn't shoot the puck. I'd sooner have Weber or Petrie on that top power play unit than Gustafsson because he's just a distributor. Have Nick Suzuki play the Kucherov in that half wall slot, put Gallagher in front of the net, and then have Caulfield on the other side, or Toffoli, however you want to do it. Having Gallagher in front of that net in the power play, I think would be a good addition because he's a pain in the ass. You see guys, they hate him. He's effective at that role, but make him earn it in front. But for Montreal, have somebody in front that's going to be a factor. If Lekkonen's healthy, potentially Lekkonen, but have a guy in front of the net that's not a bumper player for them. Have somebody in front of that that's going to screen the goalie, that's going to make it a distraction, and use your points to your advantage. But you need to get traffic in front. You need to get to the middle of the ice because Vasilevsky, the heir apparent, has been the better goaltender through 2 games. Carey Price is still fantastic. He can steal game 3. But looking ahead, you know, if Tampa plays better in game 3, which I assume they will, he can steal a game from Montreal. But game 3 is the Carey Price game. What are you going to bring, Carey? Because this team's been pretty good in front of you all playoff long. The worst series they had when it comes to playing in front of Carey Price to me was the Toronto Maple Leafs series. He bailed them out and he won them that series. He got a lot of clout in that series for being this dominant force. Since then, the team defense of the Montreal Canadiens has been pretty superb. It has been elite, I would say. This is not the Carey Price show where he's been so head and shoulders above everybody else. It's been the team playing really good team defense, Carey Price making the saves that he should make. And we'll see what he can do in game 3. But will Killorn return for Tampa? They win without him. So maybe they'll let him sit. If he does have a broken foot, it's unlikely he'll play again in this series. But for Montreal, it's a crushing loss, no doubt about it. And it's tough to say we should have won game 2 and go play, but play the same game in game 3 because Tampa's not going to win that game again where they play that terribly. You know, Vasilevsky can only make so many saves. And if you get more traffic in front, if you use your points like I'm mentioning, then you can win. You can win these games. You know, game 1, it looked like Tampa was in a class by themselves against the Montreal Canadiens. Game 2, you go to the different page in the book, it looked like the Montreal Canadiens were head and shoulders above the Tampa Bay Lightning. That's not really an opinion. I think that's just a fact. So it can change game to game. We see that 2-day stretch. Now we're traveling. We're heading back to Montreal. What does Montreal have in front of their home fans? This is their first Stanley Cup final since 1993. You'll get to play a home game. You're going to feel some momentum from that. The city is going to be electric. Even down 0-2, those Montreal Canadiens fans will be just crazed outside the Bell Center. And I got to bring this up. Last night, as midway through the second period, it came up on my phone, breaking news, that the Quebec health authorities have rejected the Montreal Canadiens' plan to allow 10,500 fans into the Bell Center for Game 3 on Friday. So there's 50,000 at least, probably more, outside the Bell Center on any given night, including last night. But we can't have 10,000 inside the biggest arena in the NHL spread out, where it has not been proven, not once, that a sporting event has caused COVID-19. If somebody does know where a sporting event with fans has led to more COVID outbreaks, let me know. Then I'll admit I'm wrong. But I haven't heard anything about it. To be fair, on news channels like Good Morning America and ABC, you don't hear much about COVID anymore because it's not the other guy in the White House. It's the guy they like, the Democrat. But I said I wasn't going to get into politics. Nevertheless, I'm not a Donald Trump supporter. I watched that show with my parents and it was quite funny, the coverage that they give from different people. Nevertheless, so 50,000 can be, nose to nose outside, right in front of each other. Probably a lot of people, kissing, making out, doing whatever the hell they're doing out there, sharing beer, saliva, the works. And we can't go and spread 10,500 in a rink. This is ridiculous from the Quebec health authorities. We're opening up. You can't play in fear forever. And if you're the Quebec health authorities, when's Montreal getting back to a Stanley Cup final? Guess what? You don't know. They could be back next year. It could take another 30 years. It was almost 30 years. You don't know. In pro sports, there's no guarantees. Not everybody is the New England Patriots where you're back every other year. It takes time. I mentioned the Maple Leafs, the Chicago Cubs, the Cleveland Indians. There's long stretches where teams don't get back. The Phoenix Suns booked their ticket to the NBA championship last night. They haven't been since 1993, like the Montreal Canadiens. Guess what? That barn in the Valley of the Sun is going to be jam-packed with fans, like it should be. But yet, I just think it's so stupid that the Quebec health authorities and our government is not allowing more fans into that arena. This is a once in a potential lifetime opportunity. Now, maybe they'll be back next year, but it's still a once in a lifetime opportunity because maybe that person who can afford a ticket this year can't next year because something happens or tickets aren't available. But you're not giving that person the opportunity to go watch their favorite team play. Or you're not giving the opportunity just to fill the rink, to have a better vibe. 3,500 people will be loud, but 10,500, it would be nuts in the Bell Center. And it's honestly sad to me that after 14 months, whatever it's been of COVID as we hit into July, that we're still living in a world full of fear. You live life to live. Living in fear is basically waiting to die. And to me, this is a moment where you're in the horror movie and you're like, okay, let's not go in this room. I'd rather go in the room and face the monster than just sit outside and wait to be picked off. That's my analogy. But anything that COVID wins, I will be against. And to me, this is just so simple. And how this is not safer than having 60,000 people outside nose to nose with each other will never make sense to me. No doctor will be able to make sense of that to me. But you know what? Good for the Quebec health authorities. You're just showing yourself to be, more incompetent than I already thought you were. So good on you. But Game 3, Montreal, Tampa, Friday night. Why is it not Saturday again? But Friday night, 9:00, same time. Carey Price game. I'll talk about this tomorrow morning on the podcast, but and preview it. But what do you got, Carey? What do you got? We'll see tomorrow night, as the Heir Apparent has been better than the best goalie in the world for a long period of time. First for the Montreal Canadiens and Carey Price through the first two games. But I also mentioned last night, it's another 1993. In 1993, Charles Barkley got the Phoenix Suns to an NBA championship in his first season with the Phoenix Suns. He was traded from the Philadelphia 76ers. And he went up against, a pretty good player in Michael Jordan. And Michael Jordan ended up capturing his first ring. And his second ring, defeating the Phoenix Suns in 6 games. But since then, the Phoenix Suns have had some good seasons. They had Steve Nash, where he won back-to-back MVPs. They had Amari Stoudemire, Jermaine O'Neal. They've had some good players pass through the Valley of the Sun, but they were never able to get back to an NBA championship. And that wasn't until this year. Now, when this year started, I think a lot of people saw the Phoenix Suns as a team that would be a lot better. At the end of last year, they're in the bubble. They went 8-0, just missing out in the postseason by 1 game. But they had Devin Booker, a blossoming star from the University of Kentucky. They had former number 1 overall pick DeAndre Ayton, who's quickly developing into a great elite center, who is not just a pick and roll player, but who could shoot from 18 feet and was also a great rebounder. They had Mikal Bridges, who was a blossoming star, and they signed Jay Crowder, who's coming off an NBA Finals visit with the Miami Heat last season in the bubble. So there's a lot to be excited about. But what pushed this team over the edge into saying, well, maybe this team could do something this year, was the addition of Chris Paul. Chris Paul is one of the best point guards in the history of the NBA. A great passer, but what he is at his essence is a floor general, where he runs the floor. He brings the ball up. He can find people. Everybody is just better positioned when Chris Paul is there because he tells them where to be. And they know the role. They don't have to do more because Chris Paul is there to be the facilitator. And he missed the first 2 games of this Western Conference final with COVID. Since coming back, he struggled. Him and Devin Booker shooting under 30% for the pair of them as a team. And they lose game 5 on Monday with a chance to lock it up, head back to an NBA Finals at home. And game 6, to me, last night the pressure was all on the Phoenix Suns. Because if they lost last night, I believe the Clippers would have won game 7 and went to an NBA championship. But last night was Chris Paul's night. He has never been to an NBA Finals. He's 36 years old, is an all-time great. But in the NBA, your value is based on championships. And winning 1 championship for Chris Paul would do so much for his career. I think vault him in potentially into the top 5 point guards of all time. And this season, he was fantastic, finishing 3rd in MVP voting, being a dominant force and leading this team deep into the playoffs. But last night, he's playing his former team where he had a lot of success in his career with Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan with the Clippers during the Lob City era, but he could never get past the second round. Then he went to Houston, where he lost in the conference finals up 3-2, but he got injured in game 6. Golden State ended up coming back and win. So this was a night where he could say, this is my moment. I can get to an NBA Finals. What did he do last night? He balled out. The old veteran Chris Paul last night put up 41 points, shooting 7 for 8 from 3-point range. He was shooting 29% from 3 in this series prior to last night. He just went off on the Los Angeles Clippers. It was just a fantastic showing of Chris Paul just being the dominant point guard, but just being a scorer last night where he was not going to be stopped. He couldn't be guarded. And this was a ferocious beast for him where he finishes with 41 points and only 8 assists. Normally he's a double-digit assist guy, but last night, late in the game, he took it over and he said, we're going to NBA Finals. This is our year. And the Suns are going. But it was just a balanced night where Devin Booker scored 22. DeAndre Ayton had 16 points, 17 rebounds. Jay Crowder, who is struggling in this series, shooting under 25%, knocked down 4 threes last night. He found his game, finished with 19. Starters all contributed for the Phoenix Suns. But at the essence, it was Chris Paul. This guy needed an NBA Finals berth, and he's got it. The Phoenix Suns defeat the Clippers 130-103. For the Clippers, it was a great run. They were down 0-2 twice in the playoffs, come back and win those series. That had never happened before. They didn't have Kawhi Leonard for this entire series. Paul George fought valiantly, but ultimately the Phoenix Suns were just too much. They were without Kawhi Leonard. They were without last night their starting center, Zubac. And DeAndre Ayton took advantage of that, grabbing a bunch of rebounds. Paul George finished last night with 21 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists, but he just wasn't enough. He needed to be a scorer and a facilitator. And Reggie Jackson had a night where he wasn't the sharpest game he's ever had, and it was a bad night to be bad. But they lose by 27. But for the Phoenix Suns, Devin Booker's only in his 4th season. DeAndre Ayton's only in his 3rd. These are kids. What we're seeing in the NBA, it's all about injuries. And sometimes these young kids that haven't been through the playoff wars don't know any better. Devin Booker doesn't know any better. He never been to the playoffs prior to this season. He's just like, you know what? Let's play. I'm not afraid of the big moment. Same with DeAndre Ayton. I'll go up against any center in the game and I'll beat them. And for their first playoff experiences, Mikal Bridges' first playoff experience, they're just playing. They're playing with house money. They're playing with fun. And last night was the first real time they had a test where it's a huge game to win. And they get through it. And Phoenix defeated the Lakers in game 1. They sweep the Nuggets, and now they beat the other LA team in the Western Conference Final. This is not a fluke. This team, maybe you said they got lucky getting the Lakers with Anthony Davis injured, or they got lucky because Kawhi Leonard got hurt. I do believe the Clippers would have won this series if Kawhi Leonard was healthy. But if ifs and buts and candy and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas. The Phoenix Suns are healthy. You gotta give teams credit for being healthy at this time of the year. Staying healthy, you can complain about the shortened offseason, all this, but the teams that stay healthy during this whole stretch deserve a ton of credit too. They didn't have Chris Paul for the first 2 games. They won both of those games. He had COVID. Clippers could have took advantage of that. They should have possibly won the first 2 games, but they didn't. Phoenix battled through it. They were without their leader, without their floor general. They still got those wins. And for the Clippers, it's an interesting offseason. Paul George has already re-signed, but Kawhi Leonard has a player option. He's likely going to opt out, looking for a longer-term contract with more money. But the Clippers, I assume they're going to bring him back, but what's his injury status? Does he need surgery on his ACL? What's the extent of the injury? And we saw in Toronto, he had to basically load manage his way to his title. And at the end of that season, he was dragging that leg. Well, this year, he couldn't even play during the playoffs. He played his heart out in Toronto. In LA, he couldn't play in the Western Conference Final. So he's never going to be a guy that you 100% trust to be there when you need him. And that would worry me if I'm the Clippers. But they really don't have any other choice. There's no superstar on the free agent market that you can sign and say, we're a title contender next year. With Kawhi Leonard, you are. So I assume they'll bring him back, but it's a tough position for Steve Ballmer and co, where we love Kawhi Leonard as a player when he's in the lineup. But availability is everything. Because this Clipper team, they're not going to see this as a successful season after losing last year. This was a championship season for them. Another one. Last year was championship or bust. They were up 3-1 against Denver in the second round. They choke it away. This year, the Lakers are out in the first round. You don't have to go through the Lakers. LeBron's out. That big dragon is out of the West. And you don't find a way to get to a finals. There's no Brooklyn on the other side either. The Brooklyn Nets are going to be back next season, presumably healthy again, knock on wood in the NBA, but they're still going to have that big 3. And they're going to be another year of continuity. Maybe the Brooklyn Nets will be the Miami Heat of 2011. LeBron, D-Wade, and Bosh played together, but they got to a final they couldn't win. Can the Brooklyn Nets have a year where they had some playoff failure? They get over it, they come back and win a title. I wouldn't rule it out. But for the Clippers, what do you do moving forward? But for the Suns, they see their path and they've taken advantage of it. They've won every series so far. They're into an NBA Finals, and now they get to rest. Hawks, Bucks, game 5 tonight, meaning game 6 Saturday. Who knows? It could go 7. That's Monday. You're going to get some time off to heal your body. And Phoenix has already had a lot of rest where they had a 4-game sweep of Denver. They finished against the Lakers in 6. So they're going to be the much fresher team than Milwaukee or Atlanta. Because you got Milwaukee with the Giannis injury. It was revealed he did not tear his ACL. No structural damage, but he's doubtful to play tonight in Game 5. Trae Young, for the point guard for the Hawks, has a bone bruise in his foot, did not play in Game 4. Questionable for tonight, so who knows if he plays. So you're going to have the best player on both of these teams wounded, whoever you play. If it's the upstart Hawks that make it to an NBA final, well, Trae Young is hampered. If it's the Bucks that make it to a final, the Greek Freak, the two-time MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, has a bad knee or something wrong with his leg. Can even play? It'll be like the Clippers where can Leonard play? We'll see. But congratulations to the Suns getting to an NBA Finals and, taking advantage of the opportunities of this weird NBA season. And looking ahead to tonight, I mentioned the injuries. That's right off the top. But for the Milwaukee Bucks, they need just to stop playing stupid basketball. What I mean by that is their game is not to shoot threes. They shot 39 three-point shots in Game 4. They only made 8 of them. Their game is get the ball to the paint and give it. When Giannis is in the game, which he was through the first 3 quarters, he only had 6 points. He was having a terrible game. And the Hawks were without Trae Young, and they couldn't take advantage of it. Get the ball to Brook Lopez down in the paint. Give the ball to Giannis in the paint. Drive the basketball. Chris Middleton can drive the ball. You have Drew Holiday, who's great at getting to the paint and getting fouled, getting an N1. Drew Holiday's shooting terrible from 3 in these playoffs. Chris Middleton, the frustrating part with him is that one game, he's a superstar. He looks like an elite player in the NBA. Then the next game, like he did in Game 4, goes 0 for 6 from 3. He went 0 for 9 in Game 1. When Chris Middleton just plays average, this team wins. He can only play, he can play great or play terrible. That's the problem. There's no middle ground for Chris Middleton. And if there is no Giannis Antetokounmpo, and we'll likely not know that until, just before tip tonight, the pressure's on Chris Middleton to be Batman tonight. He'll have to be their best player. And he'll have to rely on Drew Holiday. And of course, you got to hope Bobby Portis continues to give you really good minutes off the bench where he needs to get his ass to the paint. You got a 3-point shot with no Giannis. The only rim protector that the Hawks have is Clint Capella. Other than that, you're going to have a matchup where you're going to have a size advantage. John Collins is having to play power forward. That's not his position. That's not where he has the most success at that position. Take advantage of the small guys. Bogdanovich. Lou Williams is not a great defender. Take advantage of him, Drew Holiday. Take him on the dribble. And Lou Williams is also 36 years old. He's a 6th man of the year, played great in Game 4. But we'll see. For the Hawks, hopefully they can get Trae Young back because that would be a huge add. But just play your game. They're confident. They're just a bunch that, like I said, they're too young enough. They're young enough that they don't know any better. They just shoot the ball. They have great continuity. And if they win tonight's game in Milwaukee, I believe they will close it out in Atlanta in Game 6, where they'll have home court. Maybe Trae Young will come back for that game. But what a final that would be. The Phoenix Suns against the Atlanta Hawks. Atlanta has never been to an NBA final. They were the St. Louis Hawks. That's not Atlanta. Phoenix hasn't been to an NBA finals since 1993. I think the NBA already is not looking forward to the NBA final because they would prefer to have the Clippers when it comes to ratings. But if it was Atlanta against Phoenix, I just like watching good sports. I like watching good basketball. So I'm fine with that matchup. But I know the NBA, when it comes to viewership and ratings, that one does not exactly jump off the page. So interesting. Game 5 tonight in Milwaukee. It's a 9:30 tip. We'll see if Giannis can play, if Trae Young can play. But after that, it'll be a Chris Middleton game and Drew Holiday. They traded for Drew Holiday. This is your moment. You're in a conference final. You got a home game. Go out there and win it. And for the Hawks, just continue to balance scoring. And if Trae Young can come back, then hopefully he can give you a little bit of spark as well. So that Game 5 will be tonight as the Phoenix Suns sit and wait to see who their opponent will be in the NBA Finals. Today, Canada Day is always, you're always going to have some baseball. And every year the Blue Jays play on Canada Day, obviously. But this year is down in Buffalo, which is different. They are playing a team very close to home in the Seattle Mariners. I think it would be better if this game was in Seattle, honestly. Seattle's very close to Vancouver, as you know, and a lot of people get down to Seattle. They go to Safeco Field to see this series, but Seattle's a good team to play. The Blue Jays have split the series so far. They'll finish their series tonight against the Mariners before they head off to play the Tampa Bay Rays this weekend in a 3-game set. But lately, what you're seeing from the Blue Jays is really their bats are coming alive. Bo Bichette hit a 3-run shot the other night. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. continues to play well. Grichuk's been solid. Lourdes Gurriel Jr. has picked his game up, swinging the bat as well. And now what they really need to do is just start chipping away. They're 7.5 back of the Boston Red Sox because the Red Sox just continue to win. They're now 50-31, which is just incredible. Xander Bogaerts, Rafael Devers, JD Martinez. These guys are just hitting every single night. Their pitching has just been fair, but they find ways to win. They can outscore their opponent more often than not. And their bullpen's pretty solid. But for the Blue Jays, they added Adam Simber the other day from the Miami Marlins. They added Corey Dickerson for outfield depth. But adding to the bullpen is a good idea, but also they need to have some decent starts. Look at their rotation. Steven Matz, he's up and down. That's what his whole career is, up and down with the Mets. They got Hyun-Jin Ryu, who will start today. He's been okay. He hasn't been as good as he was last season. The last few starts have been roughed up a little bit. But, he's still their number one pitcher. Robbie Ray's been fantastic, if you ask me. Every other game, he's going to give you a great start. And more often than not, he's going to go 6-7 innings, and he'll be solid for you. But they need another starting pitcher, and I do think their bullpen could use some help as well, where you just don't have a lot of arms that you can trust back there. And with the likes of Tampa Bay, they've taken a step back. They're now 3 games back of the Boston Red Sox, but they're always a tough matchup for the Blue Jays, no matter the season. Even when the Blue Jays in 2015, 2016, where they were dominant, the Rays still gave them a tough time. They always give the Blue Jays a tough time. And it would be nice to have some insurance. They're trailing them by 4 games. So it's a big weekend for the Blue Jays, where potentially after this weekend, you could climb into second place. The Rays are sliding. They're not hitting the ball well. They lose Tyler Glass now. They're their ace. He may need Tommy John. So he's out. So there's a position now for the Blue Jays to strike. New York Yankees are going the other end, where they are now 8.5 back of the Red Sox. They're 2 games above 500 as they lose last night to the Angels in a wacky game where there was 2 rain delays. But the Angels come back. They score 7 runs in the 9th inning, which was just incredible after a grand slam by Jared Walsh. And Aroldis Chapman gives up 4. Then they get walked off, losing and a tough outing for them. So they're having a tough stretch. They'll play this afternoon at the same time as Blue Jays at 2:00. So this division is still there to be had. The Red Sox have a tougher schedule when it comes to strength of schedule, teams and their records down the stretch than the Blue Jays. But the All-Star game's in a week, so you're going to have that break. But this is time for Ross Atkins to look around and say, what's available? What teams are out of it? What teams are going to be sellers? And what could we get at end of July? What's available for us right now? What can we get to help this team? And to me, it's another starting pitcher. That's an obvious one. And another bullpen arm. And I'm going to continue to go back to Cincinnati because I don't think that team is going to be great. I think you look at Castillo, the pitcher, Luis Castillo. He'd be an arm that would be interesting. Sonny Gray. The St. Louis Cardinals are struggling in the NL Central as well. Does Adam Wainwright become available? He's only pitched for the St. Louis Cardinals. But do you go out there and add a veteran like that? He's a guy who's pitched in the playoffs. He's pitched in a World Series. He's a World Series champion. Is he as great as he was at one point in his career? No. But I think he's better than some of the guys they have on the staff right now. So he'd be an interesting add. You got to look at teams. I don't see them going all in for Max Scherzer. I don't even know if the Nationals will trade him. But with that division, it's so crazy because you have the Mets leading, but you don't feel a whole lot confident in the Mets. You got the Nationals, the Braves trailing them. Can the Braves catch fire? They've struggled all year long. Just every side of the ball. They crushed the Mets last night, winning 20-2. But can they find some success? Can they make a push here late in the season, the last few months, and make it interesting? So teams are still in that mix where they're in it but not in it. But Blue Jays need to look at teams that are struggling and identify them and say, what about this player? What would it take? Start having those conversations. And every team's going to do that. And I think the Rays, who are cheap, they won't add an elite player, but they'll look around and say, can we get this guy who you've never heard of and somehow he turns into a great player? That seems to happen all the time with the Rays. The Red Sox, who normally, they were in seller's mode because they were terrible, they'll be looking to add now. You're 19 games above 500. You want to add, you want to win. So I think the Red Sox will be aggressive as well, or they'll look to add a starting pitcher and say, why not? We can win the American League East. Why can't we win the World Series this year? The American League is not murderer's row. The Chicago White Sox look like a pretty good team, but the Cleveland Indians are right there with them. You got, you're leading your division. Then you look around, you're like, well, Astros and Athletics are pretty good, but are we necessarily petrified of them? No, like we can beat this team. So, they're pretty good, but they're not great. So it's a season in the American League where there's no front-running team. The Red Sox are great right now, but they could fall off. The Houston Astros are really good. So are the Oakland Athletics, but Oakland has had no playoff success. The Astros have had more. They'd be more of a threat, but Chicago, they're a very green team. They haven't been through those playoff wars. So for Boston, for Tampa Bay, for Toronto, you still got to think, well, maybe we can do this. Maybe we can push. And looking at it right now, the Toronto Blue Jays are 4.5 games out of the final wild card spot, where they trail Oakland, Tampa Bay, and Cleveland, with Seattle right on their heels. They're 41-37, so 4 games above 500. So we'll see. But I mentioned what to watch today, and there's some good sports on TV today. I mentioned the Blue Jays; they'll play the Mariners. That'll be at 2:00 first pitch. So obviously, it's always a Canada Day game. It's always a fun game just to watch that in the afternoon. So that's a good one. Also today, you got Wimbledon. We've seen some crazy upsets so far in the tournament where, another tough loss for Bianca Andreescu, who just continues to struggle. Lost in the first round of the French Open, loses 6-1, 6-2 yesterday. She's saying all the right things, but you got to start to look around and say, what's going to happen with Bianca? And the world number 3 has already lost this morning. Avina Svitolina in the second round. She's out of the tournament. Petra Kvitova is out. Serena Williams had to withdraw. So looking at the draw now, you got can Coco Gauff make a run? World number 1 for women, Ash Barty, did get a win this morning. Can Victoria Azarenka make a push at Wimbledon? But the women's draw is always fascinating because we saw at the French where Krejcikova, who also won this morning, she gets through. Can she make another push? Pavlyuchenkova, who she beat in the final, they're in the same half of the draw. I'd love to see those 2 women match up again. We also got Angelique Kerber, who's playing right now on court 2. She's a former champion here at Wimbledon. She dropped to 25 in the world, but grass is her best surface. With this, looking at this draw, it's hard to say she's not one of the favorites because she knows how to win at Wimbledon. She's done it in the past. So we'll see what happens. On the men's draw today, you got Roger Federer, who's slated to play this afternoon against another French veteran, Richard Gasquet. He beat Adrian Manarino via walkover in the first round, but we'll see what he's got left in the tank. This morning, Sasha Zverev, the world number 4, gets through. This afternoon, we'll see Daniil Medvedev take court. We'll see Roger Federer. Felix Auger-Aliassime will play today. This is his second round match, playing in back-to-back days after a few days of rain. So we'll see what he's got left in the tank against Michael Ymer, the Swede. But when it comes to Wimbledon, something to look forward to is I'm excited for tomorrow's match between Denis Shapovalov of Canada. He advanced via walkover yesterday. He's going to be playing Andy Murray. Now, 5 years ago, Andy Murray was the world number 4. He was, it was the big 4 in tennis: Andy Murray, Djokovic, Nadal, Federer. But then he got injured, and he's been battling injuries, and he was only allowed in this tournament because they gave him a wild card because he's a past champion. But he's into the third round after winning a 5-set match yesterday over a German player, Oscar Adi, and it was his first 5-round win, first 5-round match, sorry, since 2017. And it just showed his fitness is still there. He got through the match, and maybe he'll be gassed after the match yesterday. But, Dennis against Andy Murray, it's still a big test for Dennis because Andy still has that, intrigue about him where he's a past champion. He's had a ton of success here at the All England Club. The crowd will be behind him. So how does Denis Shapovalov deal with that? He's a guy that loves momentum. He likes to have people back him. He's still a hothead at heart. So how does he respond to the fans supporting Andy Murray? And he may get some boos. He's not going to be a fan favorite. So how does he deal with that? I'll be interested to see how he does with that. But that'll be a fun match tomorrow. I look forward to. But you got Wimbledon all day today. And the third thing this afternoon is you got the Rocket Mortgage Classic. And that's obviously the golf tournament this weekend in Detroit. Bryson DeChambeau, last year's winner of the tournament, is in the field again. It's not a great, awesome field because we saw a great turnout for the Travelers last weekend. But, Matthew Wolff, just look at the leaderboard start today. Matthew Wolff, he's an interesting golfer. You got the Masters champion, Hideki Matsuyama, who's a shot off the lead so far today. You got Max Homa, who's won a tournament this year. You got Canadians Mac Hughes and I believe Corey Connors are both in the field. Phil Mickelson is playing. So you got some players that have some intrigue. I mentioned, you got Will Zalatoris. So there are some names that'll keep you interested. Adam Hadwin, another Canadian in the field. So not a loaded field at Rocket Mortgage. When you have a day off from work and you can just sit there and watch some golf on a Thursday, which is never really an option because you're working, take advantage of it. I know I will be just to see if DeChambeau can go back-to-back at the Rocket Mortgage, just a few weeks away from the Open Championship. So you got baseball, you got tennis, and you got golf. Not exactly the three, sports you think of, but you get to enjoy all three today. Just kind of sit back, enjoy the day, and reflect on what today really means for this country and for all of us as people, and unite us as a people in general. But have a great whatever day you want to call it today, Canada Day, Reflection Day. I want everybody to have a great day. I'll be back tomorrow morning, talk about everything from the world of sports today, preview Game 3 of the Stanley Cup Final. Everybody, like I said, this is a special episode. This is special for me. We're getting to a day I really love, but also, it's starting of a new month here on the podcast. So first, if you're a first-time listener, hope you enjoyed today's podcast. I plan on doing more interviews and more of these down the road. So always appreciate the support. Stay healthy, stay happy, everybody, and we'll talk soon.